guys, so I'm here to record one of my Wednesday videos, and this will be another steampunk book discussion. This time I'm going to go through the best standalone, well, not even the best, it's just kind of like all the standalone steampunk books I have read. I have them kind of ordered by best to worst. There are 21 books that were on this list. So these are standalone books. They're not part of a series. They're not a graphic novel. They're full-length books. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go through them because this is going to be a bit of a long one here. All right, so starting with 5-star steampunk books. The first one that well, not even the first. They're not in order of like when I read them, but first one I'm going to talk about is The Black God's Drums by P.J. Lee Clark. I actually gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars, but I really enjoyed it. It is a novella. It's set during the Civil War in an alternate steampunk New Orleans. It follows a girl named Creeper who accidentally gets involved in a plot dealing with African gods and African mythology. It was a really cool setting, very good world building. I mean, Clark does a great job of just like having really good, strong female characters, having really complex, interesting world building, and I really enjoyed it. In fact, I've enjoyed everything he's written, so I would definitely recommend checking him out. If you like steampunk, he will appear again in the best series, steampunk series, adult, non-romance steampunk series list. So, yeah, very good book. The next two are by the same author, and that is the first one is The Brass Queen by Elizabeth Chatsworth. This I did give 5 out of 5. It's about a woman named Miss Constance Haltwhistle, who is not only like a blue blood noble, but also a firearms dealer secretly. She ends up crossing paths with an American spy and ends up in a plot to hunt down a scientist who's made an invisibility serum. So this was just very hilarious, very fun characters, very complete world building. I really loved it, and honestly, I think Chatsworth might even be better than Carriger, and I know some people aren't going to like that I say that, but Gail Carriger has this gigantic steampunk world. She's a very good author, but I actually thought Elizabeth Chatsworth was a better writer, and I thought her world building was a little more solid, and I just loved the humor throughout and the characters. Very good. And so that leads me to the next book, which is 10 Minutes Past Tea Time, also by Elizabeth Chatsworth, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This is more of like a short story novella. It's about an inventor named Minerva who's trying to gain membership at this exclusive inventors club that is, of course, dominated by men. And she decides to use this time-traveling device she's invented to do this. She actually accidentally ends up back in Norse times and accidentally sinks a Viking ship, and it's very, very funny and very cute, and I enjoyed it a lot. All right, the next one that I'm going to talk about is probably a lesser-known one. I got this quite a while ago, and that is All Men of Genius by Lev A.C. Rawson. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars as well. This is a young adult book about a young girl named Violet who basically assumes her brother's identity to go to this famous inventors school. It has very funny dialogue, lots of fun characters, tons of interesting steampunk devices. They're like charged at the school with inventing new things, and it was just a super fun read. There is a little bit of a romance in it, but I really enjoyed it a lot, and it's one that I don't think was very popular, but it was so good. So I don't know why it is. All right. The next one's by an author that, again, he's on here a few times, and that is Matthew Kirby. So this book is The Clockwork 3 by Matthew Kirby. Gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This is a middle grade novel about 3 different characters. One's a clockmaker's apprentice who's trying to finish his clockwork man invention. One is a young woman who's trying to find this mysterious treasure. I believe she's a maid and trying to like get money to care for somebody in her life. And the other is a young orphan who finds a magical violin. The mysteries that these 3 characters are following kind of weave together, and it was just a beautifully written and very engaging story, and I enjoyed it a lot. All right. The next one is one that, when it came out, the author wasn't very well known, and it's one that I think is a little underrated as well, and that is The Bone Shaker by Kate Milford. I believe you'll see Kate Milford on this list a couple times too. This is another one I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Another middle grade read that I absolutely loved. It's about a girl named Natalie who really loves mechanical things, and when this company of traveling medicine men comes to her town, she thinks there's something off about them. And then her automatons she works on are starting to run without winding, and it gets kind of crazy. So there's wonderful characters, really cool explanations of both steampunk and medical devices, and just a ton of humor, and I really enjoyed it. All right, the next one is by another author you'll see on this list multiple times, and that is a book by Chris Wooding. One of my favorites by him is The Haunting of Elizabeth Cray. Sorry, I'm using my cheat sheet here. There's a lot to go through. This is a young adult story. It's very dark. It's about hunters that basically hunt witches and monsters, and it's set in like a dark and dank Victorian steampunk London. There were a lot of little intricate plots that kind of tied together really nicely, and it is a rather serious, dark, and dank story, but I really loved it. I thought it had very good imagery. All right, so those are 5-star ones. Now moving on to 4-star steampunk standalone books that I liked. The first one is very classic steampunk, and that's The City of Saints and Madmen by Jeff Vandermeer. 4 out of 5 stars for this. This is an adult book. It's a classic steampunk. It's set in the city of Ambergris. It's a collection of kind of short stories that all have a steampunk vibe to them. It's very creative and very interesting, but it can be kind of a hard, slow read. There's a lot of like footnotes, and the story's kind of ambiguous. There's a heavy channeling of Cthulhu. I'm like having so much trouble. Cthulhu mythos as well, so you've got that whole like things coming out of the deep and the sea and causing madness and craziness. It was good, and it is very classic steampunk. When you talk about steampunk, a lot of people will talk about Vandermeer. I thought it was good, but again, it is a bit hard to read. All right, the next one on the list is Illusionarium by Heather Dixon. Heather Dixon, this was very different. She wrote like some young adult fantasy, like entwined and stuff, like romance fantasy. This was pretty different from that. This is set as in a steampunkish world, and there's a mysterious illness that women are catching that causes their veins to turn black, and then they die. And it seems to be caused because they're falling through parallel realities. So the book itself is mainly about the brother of one of these women who is affected by this illness, and he's trying to figure out how to prevent it. It didn't get 5 stars because the ending felt really abrupt and rushed. Mostly it was a good read, and I liked it. It was a very creative idea, but it was very, very like just boom, it ended, and I felt it was super rushed. All right, the next one on the list is another Chris Wooding book, and that is Storm Thief. This is another young adult book about a couple of thieves who are kind of eking out a living in the steampunkish city of Orokos. They stumble upon this big artifact that has huge value, and they're trying to figure out what to do with that. Meanwhile, there's a parallel story about a golem named Vago. It was a really interesting world because all these people in Orokos are trying to survive in the city that's being constantly attacked by these revenants, and the way the revenants were described is pretty interesting. But in general, I found the characters to be a bit lacking in this one. The world was really cool, and I liked the revenants and the monsters, but the character was kind of, it was okay. All right, the next one that got 4 out of 5 stars is one of these like compilation books. It's a Clockwork Christmas by Ginny Schwartz, J.K. Coy, P.J. Fort, and Stacey Gale. This is definitely adult. It's a collection of 4 novellas that feature like heavy steampunk romance elements. It was kind of fun to read around Christmas time, but there were some very explicit sex scenes, so if you don't like that, very much steampunk romance, but kind of a cute little collection if you don't mind romance and you want to read some little fun steampunk books. All right, the next one on the list is by Jordan Elizabeth, who I have a few of her series in future videos, or I will, and that is Cogling by Jordan Elizabeth. This one I actually gave 3.5 out of 5 stars, so not quite 4 stars. It's another young adult book about a young woman who finds that her brother has been kidnapped and replaced with an automaton. There is some young adult romance in here. I didn't rate it 4 stars because I thought it felt a little bit too predictable and a little bit rushed. I did enjoy that there were like magic and different races of creatures and kind of a unique blend of magic and mechanical steampunk elements. So it was okay. It's a pretty short read, but all right. And then the last one on my 4-star list is actually another 3.5 star book, and that is The Mysterious Lady Law by Robert Appleton. This is another novella. It's set in steampunk London, where a dancer named Julia, her sister ends up murdered, and the mysterious Lady Law, who is this Victorian lady who solves mysteries, kind of steps in pro bono to solve this mystery. It had some fun twists, and it was a cute little read, but it felt kind of contrived. I mean, there were some really cool, unique contraptions in there and some descriptions of them, but everything just wrapped up very conveniently. All right, so on to 3-star steampunk reads. The first one on this list is another Matthew Kirby book, and that is The Lost Kingdom, another middle grade book. It was an okay steampunk adventure, but it was kind of slow, and the plot was just too simple for me. And I know people are like, well, it's a middle grade book, but yes, I have read middle grade books that, you know, kids aren't dumb, so you don't have to make the plot too simple, and I felt like this was just too simple. It is about a boy named Billy who ends up in an airship adventure with his dad. His dad is seeking a lost race of people that are going to help them fight the war against the French. Has a lot of alternate history in it, and steampunk, and some magic, and again, it was okay. The next one on my it's okay 3-star list is The Friday Society by Adrian Kress. This one was pretty popular when it came out. It's a young adult story. It's a very cute story about 3 spunky women who are assistants to kind of powerful men. I think one is like an inventor's assistant, one's a medical assistant, and one's like a fighting assistant. They end up solving a murder mystery together. The world building on this one was really weak. They just assume that, you know, it's a steampunk world, and there's not a lot of detail there. And it was very predictable. It was kind of a fun, cute, upbeat read, but, you know, it was just okay. The next one on the list is kind of a very obscure one, and this is Dogwood Sprocket by Bokara Brumley. And again, 3 out of 5 on this one. This is an adult book about a woman who is a toy maker in the future. So I think it's like 2250, or it's a couple hundred years in the future. She ends up getting pulled into the past, into the 1800s. And, you know, there's a romance there. It was cute. It was very simple, very predictable. And it felt kind of rushed because I believe this was another novella. Anyways, it was okay. 2 more on my 3-star list. The next one is Ticker by Lisa Manchev. I really love Lisa Manchev's writing, but this was not her strongest book. Again, 3 out of 5 stars. This is a young adult book about a young girl with clockwork heart, and the clockwork heart is keeping her alive, but it's starting to fail. She ends up working with this investigator to rescue her kidnapped parents. And along the way, of course, there's like a little bit of a romance, and her heart is failing, so that's like driving the story forward. I didn't really enjoy the characters in here. I thought they were all kind of mean to each other, and I thought the plot had some pretty big issues too, so it was okay, not great. And then the last one on my 3-star list is Karen Memory by Elizabeth Bear. This was an adult one. I actually did not finish it. I gave it 3. A lot of times I give do not finishes 3 stars because if I read less than half the book, I feel like there's a chance it could redeem itself, but I'm just not willing to take that chance because I don't like it. This was just a really tedious read for me. There's some really cool alternate history here and some neat details, but Karen Memory works at a like brothel type of place. Like she's not, I think she like protects the girls or something. She doesn't work as a working girl. She's like their protectress or whatever. And a lot of this book went through kind of just the day-to-day life of these working girls and the place they live in. And I just thought it was super boring. And I struggled so hard to stay interested in it and finally gave up. All right. And then we've got 3 books that I gave 2 out of 5 stars. These I just flat out did not like. And the first one's a pretty popular one. That is Empire State by Adam Christopher. I know a lot of people like this series. I got this. This is an adult book. I got this for review. And it's kind of a weird blend of like crime, urban fantasy, steampunk story. It's super original. There's parallel worlds and superheroes and steam-driven power and rifts in time and all these really crazy stuff. It's almost like a really crazy Doctor Who episode, or it reminded me a little bit of the Dark City movie, if anybody remembers that. My problem with it, there were just a ton of characters. They kind of flitted in and out of the story. Things get super convoluted with all the parallel realities and rifts in time and all of this stuff. It was super hard to keep track of what was going on, and I really struggled to stay engaged. This is one you just had to constantly be rereading and thinking and struggling and like paging back and forth. And I didn't enjoy it. As the story went on, it got very piecemeal and felt very rushed. And in the end, I was super frustrated with this book. I'm sad I didn't enjoy it because I think the premise was really creative, and I love authors that like really go outside the box, but I didn't like it. All right. The next one on here is, nobody will be surprised, is Steamed, a Steampunk Romance by Katie McAllister. Gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Again, Katie McAllister writes more romancy type book. Like, she's probably best known for paranormal romance. She's very hit or miss. She writes a lot of books. Some of them are good. Some of them are not so good. This one was on the not so good end. It is a steampunk romance adult book. It's about 2 siblings who get zapped into an alternate steampunk reality and find themselves on an airship. It's kind of loosely steampunk. The world building is super weak on this one. There's like automatons and airships, so it's steampunk. But that was it feels pretty incomplete. The romance is interesting initially, but kind of fizzled out pretty quick. It looked like it was going to be kind of this fun, like hate, love type of thing, but it just felt super unsatisfying, and I didn't like it at all. It just felt like a very cheap steampunk read, if you know what I mean. And then the last one on this list is another one that a lot of people loved. It was very popular, and that is The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi, and I probably said his name wrong. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars, and I did not finish this one either. I actually listened to this on audiobook and didn't finish it, and it's pretty rare that I don't finish audiobooks because I'm just listening to them while I drive. The ideas in here are really cool. The description is incredible, but it's also part of what just weighs down the story. There's so much description. All of it's very dry. So characterization's very dry. All the characters are pretty much kind of despicable. Like, you don't like them. So between kind of the wandering description and the dry characters, like I remember one point in the book, one of the characters was going to walk somewhere, and he spent like 30 minutes just pontificating about something you didn't care about at all, because I was listening to audiobook. And so I like had gone the whole drive home, and the character's still like walking down the sidewalk, and I'm like, okay, we are not getting anywhere here. It does follow, I think, 3 or 4 different characters. Probably the best one, my favorite of them, was Emiko, who was an automaton, but she was sold into basically a alternate type of brothel. So she's pretty much raped and tortured throughout the whole thing. And I just don't like reading about that. So I think this is one, parts of this reminded me a little bit of like the Shades of Grey book. Like, I think people listened to it because it was popular and it had a lot of super like violence and sexual stuff in it that normally wouldn't be okay to read, but it's okay to read because this book is really popular or something. I don't know. I didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable, and it was slow, and it was boring, and I didn't care. So I stopped reading that one. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was looking, there's even more notes on the other page. I basically said the whole book was dry, comes across as more of a kind of a biography as the characters, rather than a cohesive story. There's a lot of digressions, the pace is slow, the characters are depressing, the pace is excruciating, the world is demoralizing, and I couldn't deal with it. So those are the 21 books, standalone steampunk books that I have read, and kind of little summaries of them all. I will try to put links below to them. Again, I had an issue on the graphic novel one because they only allow you so much space below, and I was not able to fit in all the graphic novels listed. So hopefully I can fit in the 21 of these, because the graphic novels I tried to put links to like all the books and all the series. We'll see. Anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying these. I apologize it's so long. To be honest, this one and the graphic novel one are probably the shortest, and then the other ones are going to be even longer. There's a lot of steampunk stuff to talk about. Anyways, I hope you guys had a great week of reading, and I will talk to you on Saturday for Stacking the Shelves. I try to post videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Wednesday, something different like this, and Saturday is the Stacking the Shelves usually. I do miss some Wednesdays. I do miss some Saturdays because I don't always get books, but I do my best. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you later. Bye.